pero los clientes, número uno.
Tu dinero cuando pasa una situación como esta, ¿sí? Bienvenidos una vez más a este su programa, Hablemos de Este con Carlos Amaya
Y Juliana Estrada.
Welcome to this special show, the Hablemos de Este with Carlos Amaya, and we have an amazing guest today. I want to say hi to my friend. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, how are you, Carlos?
How are you? Thank you for taking the time. It's a special day here in the United States. We want to wish you everybody a happy Thanksgiving. If you guys are cooking, or if you guys are invited in the house, they're going to be cooking. So hopefully you guys enjoy. And first of all, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate that you come here all the way to the studio. And I'm looking forward to this episode. I know you have a lot of things to share, and your story is fascinating. So let's start from the beginning. So, are you originally from here, from North Carolina? Where are you coming from? And then we're gonna be traveling all the way here to wherever you are right now. But let's go back to the beginning.
So the very beginning is back in Minnesota. Okay. I grew up in Minnesota, born and raised. Lived there until I went to college. Went to school in Iowa. Spent most of the first half of my life in the most of my life in the Midwest. Then I did ROTC in college. Was in the Army for a while. So I was in Kansas, stationed there on active duty after I got through infantry school, ranger school, all that. And I spent up until I was almost 30 in pretty much only the Midwest. Got out of the Army, moved out to North Carolina, and that was really where the new chapter of my life started. Yeah. I started working for one of the big four consulting firms, working in the financial services space, working for banks. And I knew along the way that wasn't where I was going to stay. I knew that's not exactly what I wanted to do. I just didn't know where I wanted to go. And so I got into real estate. Real estate for me was the natural next step, next fit. And I started doing a lot of personal development work, started working a lot on me and trying to figure out what I wanted to do personally to lean into what I knew I was capable of. So I used real estate, bought a bunch of, we can talk more about the specifics, but bought a bunch of small multifamily, stuff like that early on. Quit my job a little over a year after I got started. And then along the way, realized how much I wanted to do something more meaningful than real estate for me.
Sure.
And so tried a bunch of different things, including buying a business and selling the business because I didn't like it and doing all sorts of stuff. But where I ended was focused on what I do now, which is coaching, working with business owners and entrepreneurs to help them really get off of autopilot. What I found throughout my life and through a lot of people that I work with is a lot of people are focused on achieving success in a manner that is expected of them. So maybe it's the industry that they're in, maybe it's the job that they're in, whatever that may be. And so a lot of times, and at least for me, when I was in real estate, I was pursuing the next deal. I was pursuing more deals because doors are important, because deal count is important. And I was chasing all these things that I didn't actually personally care about that much, but that was my life. And so my focus now is helping business owners and entrepreneurs get off of autopilot and build a meaningful life and build a business that supports the life rather than building a business and then trying to fit their life around it.
That's like a lot to cover. Let's go back to the Army. So how come you ended up going to the Army? I mean, it was your idea since when you were little, or was like a family guidance sometimes, like you have a path that your family has been going through for a long time? So what was your case?
For me, it was, I wanted to do something of service. I had some people in my family that were in, but I didn't have, like, my dad was in the Army, so I saw that. I didn't grow up with that. Okay. So
you have to. That's what I meant, because so many people have to do it, because they have to be go to the Army, they have to be doctors, they have to go to the college that the parents went to, and sometimes they don't even want it, but they ended up doing it. So in your case, you wanted to serve, and how do you decide Army was the avenue or the vehicle that you wanted to use to serve?
First of all, because I didn't know any better. When I pictured Army, it's the reason I picked infantry too. When I pictured Army, or when I pictured the military, I pictured the Army. I pictured the G.I. Joe, the guy on the ground. Yeah. And so that was all I saw, and that was all I initially wanted. Okay. There was not a brief moment, but there was a little while in Ranger School when I was really hungry and miserable and tired and really wanted to sleep and really wanted to eat. And I saw a helicopter come in and I was like, I should have been a pilot. Yeah. Pilot would be cool. But infantry, Army, that was the life. And I did enjoy it. It was good.
So it was good. So you decided that it was time to move on. So you said that you came to North Carolina to work in the banking industry. So what kind of a role were you doing? And well, let's start with that. What was the role that you doing? And then the whole point is to try to figure out the whole path. So you went to the army. You wasn't like a life career, but you enjoyed it. But you realized, that's not for me. It's time to move on. And then you went to the next challenge, which was the banking industry. So what was your role?
I was in the advisory services and heavily focused on credit card.
Okay.
So I fell into it, honestly.
Okay.
I knew I liked consulting because honestly, my mindset at the time when I was getting out was, I know eventually, like I've always had, ever since I was a little kid, I always had entrepreneurial mindset. I saw my mom grow up. I grew up seeing Mary Kay.
Okay.
And so I saw her as a business owner all the time. So I knew eventually that's where I was.
She was driving the car with the Mary Kay logo.
I learned how to drive a pink Cadillac.
Oh, you had the pink Cadillac.
Yep. It was fast. It was really fun. But that was how I grew up. That was what I saw. And so I saw the freedom that it afforded her. I saw the lifestyle that it afforded. I saw the way that she was able to lead and build something that she really cared about. And so I knew eventually I would get into business for myself. For me, consulting was a step along the way. And because I had no idea what type of business I wanted to create, I had no idea what I wanted to do as a business owner or entrepreneur. My kind of naive but kind of strategic mindset at the time was, I will go into consulting. I'll go learn a bunch of different trades or skill sets at least. I'll meet a bunch of different people, see a bunch of different businesses, see what I like and don't like. And eventually I'll figure out what I do and don't want to do.
Sure.
Didn't quite work out that way, but it was a really valuable experience to help me figure out what I did and didn't like and why I didn't want to stay in corporate for more than a couple of years.
Nice.
And it helped me build a financial base to start investing as well.
Okay. So how did you end up getting into real estate? So something that I mentioned multiple times, maybe the new generation, so someone like my daughter Victoria, she's been saying that she wants to become like an investor, or she wants to become like independent, like financially free for a long time, because she's been around the environment. But like my generation, if you ask how many people want to be into real estate, they're not that many. I mean, they want to be doctors, engineers, they want to go to the army, they want to be like soccer players, like singers, but not like, okay, I want to be in real estate. So it's like a second and third career for a lot of us. In your case, you said that was like a no-brainer, the next step for you. But how did you end up saying, you know what, real estate is the path at that moment in your life that you wanted to follow?
There were two pivotal moments. The first one wasn't related to real estate.
Okay.
The first one was, I call it my awakening.
Okay.
It was right before my 30th birthday. I had moved out to Charlotte. I had my career, but I was single and I didn't really have much going on here.
What year was that?
That was 2018.
2018, okay.
And so I was sitting there in my apartment, lived by myself, and at the time I was traveling every week. And so the life was fun. I enjoyed it. I was partying plenty and
nice city.
Yeah. I was, I was making money and I wasn't spending it because I was traveling every week for work and they were paying for everything. So it was fun. But then I had this moment where I'm like, I'm about to turn 30. Let's just check in a little bit. Let's see where am I right now compared to where I thought it would be. And I didn't have any grand vision or aspiration for where I was going to be at 30, but I had this feeling, and the feeling was, I have everything that I've done, I've been successful in. I wanted to go in the Army. I wanted to go to Ranger School, graduate Ranger School, and I did. And I had a good, successful Army career, got into consulting the way that I wanted to, and all of that was great. But I thought that I would be somewhere different. I thought that I would be a little bit further along, maybe. I thought that I would be in business for myself.
In regards to what? Like independent, or?
I guess I didn't have a specific thought on what that was. Okay. It just was almost more of a feeling that I felt off. Like I felt like I had a part of my potential that hadn't been realized yet. And so I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew that I was capable of a lot more than what my life looked like at that time, even though everything had looked good at the time. And so that sparked the personal development journey in a lot of ways. That sparked me to start reading. And so I got the habits down. I started every day. Whenever I would go to the gym, I would listen to a podcast from Entrepreneur Weekly and try to get ideas for what I wanted to do in business. And so along the way, I somehow stumbled into Bigger Pockets, stumbled into real estate. And I started getting into the idea of what would it be like if I invested in real estate? I see that this is a really good asset. This makes a lot of sense. Let me explore it a little bit more. And then the final turning point to actually take action was I'd understood at that point then the power of real estate. I understood the power of the wealth building and all of that. And then finally, I'd bought my primary residence, had used the VA loan, had gotten money back at closing. So I not only got zero down, but I got my due diligence deposit back, which is great. And so I saw for the first time that real estate worked. And then I went to this event with my real estate agent. And it was a customer appreciation event. And there was just this couple that I was talking to. And they talked about the multiple condos that they had. And I had built up real estate investing to be this really big thing that I had to make this monumental step towards. And they just casually mentioned how they had a couple of doors. I was like, well, if they can do it, why can't I? Yeah. So that was the final pivot that everything led to that. And then finally, when I got to that moment, I thought, like, why? What am I doing waiting? And from those two, from the awakening to that conversation was no more than 8-9 months. But then from the time that I had that conversation, that was June 6, 2019. And I got under contract for my first deal on July 2nd and closed on it in September. A week after I closed on that, I closed on my next one. So it all moved very quickly after that. But that was once I knew that was the thing. And then once I finally got that kick in the pants to take action, then it was all in.
So what kind of property were you buying? And what were the strategies that you were using at that time? So you're just like long-term rentals?
They were long-term rentals. It was kind of the Burr strategy-ish. Okay. They were small multifamily.
A small, how many units?
The first one was 4. Second one was 6, but it was 3 duplexes.
Okay.
So.
And how did you find them? How did you finance them?
They were, I think, so I had my first year, I did 5 deals that covered 20 doors. And I think all but 2 of them were on the MLS.
Okay.
And the first one, I just did conventional financing. My kind of MO with everything that I do is when I get clear on what the goal is, I go all in and I sprint.
All in.
And so I sold my equity portfolio. I got rid of everything and kind of burned the ships, as they say, and went all in on it. So at that time, I had about $90,000 that I liquidated. I put half of it into my first deal to put 25% down on this 4-plex. And then I realized that wasn't very sustainable. So the next deal I saw, I needed another $40,000, $50,000 to close. Went to a friend and asked him if he wanted to invest in it. And the next 4 deals that I did were like that. I brought anywhere between 10% to that deal to 50% of the cash. And I stretched that remaining $45,000 through another.
And did you make them partners, like a JV, or did you just pay them the interest for the money?
They were partners.
The partners. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, cool, great. So you got like 5 properties like right away, and that was right before COVID. So how did it go with the tenants? And so what did you do when COVID happens? Did you slow down? Because I know at some point you ended up doing fix and flips later. So how did it go in 2020?
Honestly, during COVID, it was fine. It was.
But you guys were here, so it's not like New York.
Yeah, there was no, for me at least, there was no real ramifications, especially because I could go travel and I could go to the sites all the time. If anything, it honestly helped me even more because I no longer traveled for work.
Yeah,
so I could spend all sorts of time.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel any, which sounds kind of bad to say because you know how many bad things happen to people.
It's good.
It was great. It was great.
It's good. I wish that happens again. Okay.
I did not say that for the record. No, but
just for the record.
Just let the people know. The reason that I pivoted into flips was because the first 5 deals that I did, that one I owned 100% of, and that was great. But the other ones that I did, I got to the point where I did 4 deals with 4 different partners. And so first of all, that just managing all the different relationships, that got to be a lot.
Yeah.
Then second of all, I was looking at doing I wanted to do some other bigger deals, and I had some people that were lined up to be potential partners, but they were other new partners because it's not like I had one rich friend that I just started working with. It was a bunch of different people that had cash. And so what I realized was I don't want to do all the work and take 50% or less of the profit anymore. I want to do something different. And so I chose flipping as a means to, if I can just build the chunks of capital myself, I can invest in my own deals. Yeah. And then that led to, initially I had, hopefully for other real estate investors, this makes sense and helps kind of change their mindset a little bit. But I had an initial goal of $10,000 a month in cash flow, which for some reason, that's what all of us.
Yeah, all of us. Yeah, I think that, yeah.
And then I started thinking instead about, okay, what do I actually need? Like if I want to quit my job, what do I need to get in order to quit my job? And then I started looking at my expenses, and that changed from $10,000 to say like $5,000 or $6,000. And then we have this belief that in order to quit our job, the only thing that we can do is go from working 40 to 60 to 80 hours a week to retiring on a beach with just nothing but passive income. So like, first we need to make way more than we need to make, and it's all got to be passive. Yeah. And so I changed my mindset, and I thought if my actual goal to get on my job is say 6, if I have $2,000 in cash flow coming in, then $4,000 a month needs to be made up. Well, if I flip one house for a $25,000 profit, that covers that for 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I started playing the game of let me build cash flow to cover that gap, but also I can make up that gap by creating chunks of income for myself through flipping, and each chunk then increases my runway. Okay. So that's why I shifted into flips.
So, and how was the experience with your first flip, fix and flip? Fix and flip was one of the sexiest strategies in real estate, and so many people get burned. So many other people like yourself, it seems like they're able to do it properly. So, how was your first experience? We're gonna find out if you did it properly. So I assume.
I had 2 flips that I started within 2 weeks of each other.
Okay.
So the first one that
let's talk about numbers. How much did you pay for that? How much did you invest, and what happened? What was the outcome?
Oh boy, test my memory.
So it doesn't have to be like
one of them was I think I paid like $90,000 for the very first one that I closed on.
And what was the property located at?
It was in Kannapolis. I thought that I was going to do a rather not simple but easy enough rehab to create some square footage and all that kind of stuff. It ended up. I did everything wrong. Like if you listen to Bigger Pockets and say these are the things that you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
I did all of those
Your name
things.
Is there. Like
yes.
Patrick.
Yes. Patrick said, screw that. I can do that one. So I did everything wrong. I ended up, because the market was great, I ended up still profiting somehow. Okay. But the project took about 6 months longer than it was supposed to. And it went from being it was going to be like a $30,000 to $50,000 rehab to it probably cost closer to 100.
Oh, okay. So when you said I did everything wrong, exactly what did you do? What did you do wrong?
The first thing was the 2 main things. One was the contractor that I hired was not an actual general contractor. I didn't check any of his certifications.
But he had a truck.
He had a truck.
He had
a truck. I had worked with him before on some other smaller stuff.
Yeah.
He called himself a general contractor, and I didn't think to look and check his license or anything like that. Turns out he was just a dude that had some people that worked for him. And the problem was when I started, I didn't really know any better from my own perspective, and I was just kind of naive, and I trust people too easily. And so he was charging me based on, like, we didn't have a very clear defined scope of work. We didn't have clear stages for payment. I was just paying him weekly based on what he was paying his guys. And so all of a sudden we were a few months in, and the budget that we had initially set was gone, but none of the work most of the work hadn't gotten done. And I don't know where it was going. Cause he was just paying his guys. So all of that was wrong. One of the things we uncovered was a bunch of termite damage that we didn't see initially. So that cost God knows how much. Then we ran into a bunch of other issues along the way that were way more expensive than I thought they were going to be. And I just underestimated all of it. So
that was what went wrong with that one. And you said that at the same time, just few days apart, you got another fix and flip and contract at the same time.
Yes.
So how did
that one was perfect.
Okay.
That one, I paid $60,000 for it. The budget for the rehab was 30, and I think I came in at like 29.
Okay.
And it got done so quickly that we had to extend closing a couple of days to allow the 90-day period for the FHA loan. Okay. So I ended up, from start to finish on this thing, I think it was sold and closed from closing to closing in like 93 days.
So the difference between the both experiences, was it because the second one was a lot better deal and you bought it right, or because you learned from the first one and then you said okay, now I can apply it? But it wasn't like a couple of days before. So what was the difference? Because one was such a successful flip, and then one was such a mess.
One was simple, one was super complex.
Okay, so
that's what it came down to.
Okay, so
one was primarily, the one that did well was primarily cosmetic, and
which is the idea to start.
It was great like for a first one.
Yeah,
and the biggest thing that went wrong was that the ceiling or the drywall in the living room collapsed and broke because it was rotted, and we had to replace the insulation. Like the biggest problem we had was $800.
Okay.
The other one was just an incredibly complex project, especially for a first one.
Which would be a hassle for anybody, even with experience. But in your
Yes.
case, it was even harder, even bad. Okay.
Because even with a really good general contractor,
It's still
I
gonna
still
be-
would have run into
yeah.
issues with it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So you did this two. One took forever. The other one was easy fix and flip. So what did you do next? You say, okay, I'm gonna keep looking for more like a light rehab projects, or you say, you know what, forget it. Now that I see that I did that one, I was able to get that one through. I'm gonna get more complicated properties because I think the payoff is gonna be higher.
I did a little bit of both. I pursued a few that were pretty simple and straightforward. And then I bought one in particular that was the worst deal that I've ever done. That puts
Where's that one?
That one, to be honest, this all ties into what I do now and why it's so important because
that's the whole point. Just figure out how all of that brought you here.
To pull it back a little bit, I quit my job, trying to remember dates now, October of 2020.
Okay.
So October 30th of 2020 is when I quit my job. So up to that point, I had a very clear goal. I had a very clear purpose. My purpose was to build enough income
to replace your
business
income.
to replace my income to leave my job. Once I quit my job, I lost my purpose in a lot of ways. Now, my daughter was born and my family life, there's all of that provided purpose.
Yeah.
But direct to the business purpose, I didn't have a direct business purpose anymore.
Okay.
And so I just kept chasing the next thing. So when I talked about success and chasing the definition of success in that industry, I didn't really have specific criteria behind what I was buying. So I bought a 8-unit place out in Fayetteville that was a total gut job, total disaster. That realistically at the time it was $92,000 when I bought it, and it realistically needed like $200,000+ in rehab.
Wow.
But I saw the numbers and I saw the excitement of it. I saw that it could provide cash flow and also provide massive equity growth. And so I got excited about it. And because I didn't have any specific direction that I was trying to go, it could have been a good deal. And so it made sense. And I made a whole bunch of mistakes on that we can talk about if you want to. But
okay. So what happened with that deal? So you bought it and then you realized that there was a lot more money that you expected in terms of the renovation and everything, and it was a lot bigger project that you were preparing to do so at the time?
It was a combination of a couple things. One was, definitely bit off way more than I could chew, way more than I was prepared to do at that time. It was in Fayetteville. So if you're not from the area, Fayetteville is about 3 hours or so away from Charlotte. The contractor that I hired, so the first 2 deals that I did, the contractor that went not so great, the other one was a licensed general contractor and someone who'd been a friend of mine for a little bit. And so because I trusted him, I pulled him into this deal. He had a property manager that was semi-local to the area. And so he had project manager.
Yeah.
And he was kind of running it, but he didn't do a very good job running it. He was a newer general contractor, so he didn't have the experience in the commercial side. So I should have never hired him in the first place. For me, it was just in my head, I had someone that was good on one deal.
Yeah.
And he was the easy option. So we jumped on to the next one, not thinking about the fact that he was in no way qualified to do it. So underestimated the rehab, got the wrong contractor. I spent a lot of time trying to manage them and manage their product management. A bunch of stuff went sideways because of pulling permits and processes that he wasn't familiar with. And so the city got involved and slowed everything down. But then when everything slowed down and he had issues with his project manager, he said, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm not equipped to do this anymore. So that was
which he was right.
He was right.
Yeah.
He was not wrong at all.
Yeah.
The bummer was at the time that just kind of like we got to a point where all of the rough work had been done on the property, but none of it had been permitted and approved.
Okay.
And so no one is going to go, like, basically everything that had been done needed to get redone, or at least I had to pay to redo it because no plumber is going to come in behind a plumber that already did the rough work and say, oh, it's probably good.
Yeah.
And so all of it had to be redone. I ended up having all sorts of problems with at that point, because I had to put so much more money into it and I had a private loan and I wanted to make sure that they got taken care of. I just said, screw it. I'm going to be done with this. I'm going to let go of this one. I'm just going to sell it. When that happened, he still owed me, because I'd already paid him for the next phase of work. He still owed me $40,000, which to this day I've still never seen. That money is gone forever. So that entered into a whole cycle with him of me trying to get my money back and him not having it anymore because it went to another project. And then I couldn't sell the deal. And so this created a whole mindset thing where now not only is the deal starting to go sideways, I spent 2 years trying to sell this deal,
Wow.
but I've got money tied up in it. And really the money was the least of my concerns because it just put me in a place that mentally I hated what I was doing every day.
Yeah.
And I would have been better off being in my job than running the real estate business that I had at the time.
Sure.
And so every time, like, I would get on phone calls with him because I couldn't comprehend how someone could not have the responsibility to even try to pay me back when he owed me money. And it just created this cycle where I would get on calls and I wouldn't recognize who I was in the calls because I was so angry and frustrated. And so everything spiraled. And eventually beginning of last year, I sold the deal. And over the course of 2+ years, I lost over $200,000 on it.
Wow.
But more importantly, lost a lot of mental sanity, and lost a lot of sleep and all of that.
Which at the end of the day, that's what create repercussion in your own life. You know, sometimes you say, okay, that was a bad deal and it's money, and nobody wants to lose money, but it's part of the process. And then if you haven't lost any money in real estate because you haven't done it long enough, you will lose money eventually. But the effects on the personal life and the relationships, sometimes we take all the anger and frustration and then we just try to affect our close family, wives, kids. And in worst case scenario, even with ourselves, you know, like the imposter syndrome and everything that comes with, and we're gonna talk about that in a minute. So you sold that one in January last year. So did you say, forget it, this is it, I don't want to do any more real estate, or how did it work?
There had been along the way. So while that was all going on, I was still flipping. Okay. And so that was just the idea was I build two things simultaneously. I build flipping so that I can fund the investments, and then I run the investments. So in the meantime, besides that deal, everything else was going well. Okay. I had my other deals that I took a less of a buy and hold approach and not even a burr approach. And it was more of a burr whip where I would burr the property. I'd get it up to increase the rents on it, maximize the value, maximize the cash flow, and then I'd sell it at retail. Okay. And then I'd take the proceeds from that and I'd go buy another deal and I'd go do the same thing. So I ended up taking that initial 4 unit and snowballing it through a number of other things and ended up with 18 units, or with an 18 unit place. And so all of that was going well. And then at the same time I was flipping, and this is where really the two went hand in hand together going poorly, where as I started flipping more, because I lost sight of what my goal was and what my purpose was, the next thing for me was, well, I can flip a couple houses a year. And I did. So the year after I quit my job, I made more than I made in my job. But then I was like, well, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm competitive, and success means I've got to automate, and I've got to make, if I can make flipping passive, then I've really made it, because that is success. And so I didn't care about flipping, but I made that my new goal. And so I went from flipping houses to building a house flipping company. Yeah. I was never good at marketing and sales. So I spent all my time focused on marketing and sales. I spent all my time focused on hiring people to do marketing and sales, building the systems to do marketing and sales. And so I started dumping a whole bunch of money into a flipping business that I didn't care about really, just because it felt like the next thing. And ironically, when I started building the flipping business, I stopped flipping houses because we weren't getting deals. I wasn't going to look for deals elsewhere like I had been in the past. Yeah. And it created that then was happening at the same time as the really bad deal. Yeah. Eventually, before the really bad deal sold, there was a moment in between where just all of this stuff was coming together. I wasn't happy with anything that I was doing. Financially, there was still there was plenty of good. I had a lot of equity in a lot of different deals, but my cash flow was negative every month. And it was just, I was in a bad spot because I was also just frustrated and I hated everything that I was doing. And it was through a GoBundance event, one of the first Emerge event that I went to, where I'm talking about the impact that I want to have, the things that I want to do with my future, the life that I want to live. And then I'm talking about flipping houses. And one of the guys looked at me and he's like, what are you doing flipping? How is this doing anything to help you get where you're trying to go? And that was my moment of awakening.
You were like, oh,
yeah. Yeah. It's like, you're kind of an asshole, but yeah, you're right.
And you're like, yeah.
And
then you thank him. Yeah, thank you for.
Yeah. It turned into that was the start of my in-depth, coaching personal development work. Yeah. And that was when I knew at that point that it took about a month, because there was a lot of mindset stuff there. Mm-hmm. I'd built this team, I cast a vision for this team. And my thought was, well, I can't, if I do anything but keep going until this is either successful or until I'm bankrupt, then I'm failing my team. I'm quitting on my team. And sure. I'm not a quitter. I've never quit anything. And I had to overcome this obstacle and this mindset shift between quitting and pivoting. And pivoting is really important. Being able to pivot is really important. I've done that a lot since. Quitting is giving up. And I couldn't distinguish the two at first. And so I was holding on to this business that was going to effectively drive me to both insanity and bankruptcy because I was afraid of what people thought. And so eventually I finally, like a month or two after this event, I finally shut down the flipping business, let everybody go and started looking for the next thing. Initially I looked into multifamily because I thought, well, I'll just play bigger. And I started doing that and then I realized it was just more of the same. Didn't want to do that. And then I got into, I discovered business acquisition. And so I jumped on that bandwagon for a little bit and I thought it'd be cool. And the business acquisition part was cool. The business ownership of a lawn care company was not that cool. But along the way through that process, like that was I needed that time to explore and figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah. So you sold, did you ended up liquidating the real estate and then you use that money to buy the business?
No, I ended up buying the business with no money too.
With the money. Okay. So it was seller finance.
It was, I had bank financing plus seller financing. And so I again left the closing table with money in my pocket.
Okay. So you bought a business and what was the reasoning to buy that business? Because I know you saying, okay, I'm now fulfilling my purpose to fix and flip, and that's not what I want to do, and all those moving pieces and everything, and that makes a lot of sense, especially where you are right now. I'm just trying to figure it out. How do you ended up getting a business in the landscaping business, and what would you think that? What make you think that was going to be better than fix and flip?
Insanity. No, it was.
That was fast.
It was I treated it like real estate in a lot of ways. Like I saw the value add from it. So it was an owner operated business. And in hindsight, that was a big mistake. I should have bought one that actually had employees and all that. But I saw something that could be improved. Yeah. And I got excited about that.
So you bought a challenge. You saw a challenge. You're like, you know what? I can make this the new project and I can just prove to myself that I can get it through the finish line and I can make it happen.
And and the steps, like, I knew what the steps were. It was executing on the steps, and the reality of the situation that was a little bit different than I anticipated because I didn't actually enjoy any of that either. But yeah, I liked the challenge of it. I liked the money of it. I liked the ability to go in and buy a business that was already producing revenue rather than starting from scratch. I liked the idea that I could then, I almost actually bought a second one a couple months later. Because I thought I can just keep growing through acquisition. Because I do agree with and like the idea of business acquisition. Totally. But the problem that I had and the problem that I think a lot of people get themselves into is they jump on business acquisition because business acquisition seems like the industry. For me, business acquisition as like a mini PE company seemed really cool because I can just go like I can play it like real estate and I can build this portfolio and then I can spin off this and that was cool. Until I had to operate the business. I had to operate a lawn care company and I had to talk to customers for lawn care that I didn't care about. And I didn't care about the bushes that were getting trimmed and all of that kind of stuff. And so if you're getting into business acquisition, if you would start the company, then hell yeah, buy it away. That makes so much sense. But if you would never start the company because you're not interested in it, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't make sense to jump right into it. And that was my problem. I saw the money. I saw the numbers, I saw the challenge, I saw the excitement, I saw that I could put my skill set to use, and I didn't know anything better, and that was my experimentation. And
that's great that you mentioned that because a lot of people get into business because the idea, like you have people like Cody Sanchez, like, oh, we just got to stretch a business and just make multiple, and that's true, but not everybody is a business owner. And not everybody's a visionary. So I love I don't know if you have read the book Rocket Fuel. Yep. So the visionary and the integrator, a lot of people are integrators. They're more integrators than visionaries. So that's why they buy the business and they get so worried about what happened to you, the marketing aspect, and instead of trying to have the vision, and they try to like we were talking about the podcast. I mean, I have more equipment than I need because I'm an integrator into the podcast, and instead of maybe a visionary. And that happens with people acquire businesses. They acquire. They don't want to be business owners. They want to have like a self-employed, like a high paid job. Someone that's going to give you a better return, and they want to try to spend as much possible time in the business to fulfill like the significance. But at the end of the day, they are not building the business. They just find an additional high risk job for them, and instead of just a business, they're going to be able to implement this systems and just grow it and make it profitable.
I would agree with that heavily. I would also challenge that I think people are on the other side of the spectrum too. Where I was on the other side of the spectrum where I knew the value of I wasn't the integrator. Yeah. There were certain areas where I could be the operator and I could go in and do it. Yeah. But my strength was more in the visionary.
Okay.
And I saw the value of being able to cast the vision where all of these different pieces come together, but I didn't have the integrator.
I was gonna say that. So that's fine. So if you were the visionary, so who was doing the integration?
And I had the guy that I hired was actually a guy that worked with me in the real estate company.
Yeah.
And so he was bought into me. He was bought into my vision, and he was great to go do the work, but he wasn't the right one to lead a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of times, we were just having a conversation about this in my community too. A lot of times people go into business acquisition and they're like, I'm going to buy this business and then I'm going to replace myself. I'm going to hire an operator to replace myself. Like, hiring an operator is not like, you don't just flip a switch and make that happen.
Yeah.
You have to know the business well enough to bring someone in that has the expertise in there. And for some people, it's going to be easier than others, especially if you know the industry well.
Yeah.
But I think that's the misperception that I had, at least, and I see in a lot of other people, is it's going to be this easy thing. I'm just going to buy this boring business that Cody Sanchez talks about.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to plug in an operator who's going to take pennies on the dollar to operate my business for me. And I'm going to sit back and just buy more of them and never have to operate. And until you find the right people to make that happen, it's like you have to be involved and you have to do the integrator work.
And you mentioned something before with the fix and flip, and I think that this correlate to have the passion for what you're doing, you know? So when you have those businesses and you don't have the passion just to serve the client, to have the best landscaping company in Charlotte, whatever the passion is, it's hard, because if the only reason you do it is because of the perception of you're going to make a lot of money, that's when you get in trouble. That's when you say, you know what, this sucks. I didn't like it. I don't even enjoy it. I hate, like in this case, landscaping. I hate, I don't know, franchises. I hate real estate. I hate whatever it is because you don't do it because with the right reason. You do it because Tony Robbins said that if you want to make a lot of money, you have to serve a lot of people. I mean, you're just not serving people. You want to try to create something just to print money, which ideally that's how the business is supposed to be doing. But that's why a lot of people get burned. So all of that was happening. You said, this business is not for me. I guess you sold the business.
I did last year. Can I say something on that last?
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah. This is your show. Whatever.
Yes. That
we can change the name. Like
the Patrick Menefee Show.
Yeah.
Amazing. The Tony Robbins idea of serving a lot of people. I think you've got to know yourself. Yeah. And so for me, I always thought about the service aspect in a way, but I always saw how I saw real estate and how I saw lawn care was a means to create the money to serve other people. So it was always a and then statement. I will build the business to a point where it provides the income and the lifestyle that I want, and then I will use that income and that time that I create for myself to make the impact that I want to make. In the meantime, there's other people that they can be very fulfilled by providing service through, say, lawn care to other people. And they can be very fulfilled by providing real estate and housing to other people. That, for me, that didn't cut it. Like that didn't scratch the itch. And so when I got into the coaching, maybe this is where your question was going to go, but when I got into coaching, that I started to see the power of sitting across the table from someone, seeing the transformation that happened. And as soon as I saw that moment, I was like, ooh, you know what? That's it. That's the feeling. That's the impact that I want to have. And so when the impact from something like real estate or business acquisition or lawn care or whatever is do the work that I don't like, to make the money in the business that I don't like, to serve customers that I don't really care about in order to build the money and build the lifestyle, and then to be able to go have the impact, that doesn't interest me. To be able to sit across the table from someone and have that impact, that became everything that I wanted, everything that I needed to feel fulfilled.
Totally. And that's fine. I mean, that's the whole point. And I think we're going to reach to that you have to know yourself. I mean, some people will be passionate to do landscaping, and that's fine. I mean, they'll love it, and they dream, they do all the things that in terms of landscaping, how can make it nice and beautiful, and that makes fulfillment for them. And the same thing with real estate. You know, people love to do fix and flip, or they love to provide a house, and that's what fulfill them. That's fine. But in your case, and that happens to a lot of people. Like if you make a survey, like almost like I don't know the percentage, but more than 85 high of people that are W2 and even in entrepreneurial position, they are not really happy with what they're doing. They just do it for the wrong reason, because we want to just create a living. We want to keep up with the Johnsons or whatever it is, in terms of like, you know what, let me try to fulfill. Obviously, the other side of the spectrum, like you said, I mean, if I do something that fulfills me a lot, but I'm not making any money at the same time, I'm gonna be like miserable and I have a family to support. So you say, okay, that's fine. When I was sitting across the street with someone, across the table for someone, and I was doing the coaching, and I was like, this is it. I really like it, like what I'm doing. I can impact someone one-on-one. I can see the process. How do you make that be able to become a business?
There are a couple of things. One, I still had the real estate equity.
Okay.
And so the reason, going back to one of your questions before of getting rid of the business, I redeployed all of my assets effectively. I redeployed everything from my real estate and sold the business so that I could focus just on building the business.
Okay.
But I also had income coming in from some of the others. So the nice thing about that point and the benefit of all this experimentation and the financial growth along the way is that I wasn't starting from $0 coming in. So that helped. When I started building it, it was kind of a hodgepodge of making things up to make things work. The first client that I got was someone that asked me to coach them. And I just kind of fell into it. And then the next handful came from posting on social media and talking about it. And then more after that came through referrals. And so there's still plenty of that like, as I've gotten into this space, what I realize more and more is the best analogy that I can use for it is it's like playing sports. So when I was in my job, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that I had that vibe. I had that mindset and that approach. And that's what I wanted to do with my life in some way, shape, or form. And that was like, I knew that I was an athlete. When I got into real estate, I was playing soccer. And I knew that I was an athlete and I could figure it out and I could be competitive, but I wasn't a soccer player. And so then I got into business acquisition. Then I was playing baseball. And I kept trying these different things. And eventually I got to coaching. And when I got to coaching and I saw the transformation, I realized that like I found the right sport. Like I'm playing football now. I know what sport I'm playing and I know what sport I'm supposed to be playing. But that's not where it stops because the one-on-one work was cool. Yeah. I still enjoy the one-on-one work because I love the depth of the transformation. But I'm a very purpose and fulfillment-driven person. And so being able to impact people one-on-one and being able to help, 10, 12 clients at a time, that provides a lot of depth of transformation, but not a lot of reach.
Sure.
And so I knew that I wanted to do something different than that. Okay. And so I started focusing on community. And so now my work is I do some of the one-on-one, but I don't do more than a couple of clients. I focus heavily on locally. I have the Charlotte Entrepreneurs community, and then I have the online coaching and mastermind community called Becoming Kinetic. And I started to realize that my position within the sport, coaching was the sport, the position, I don't really want to play linebacker. Sure. For me, my position was in community building, in reaching larger groups of people as opposed to just strictly doing one-on-one. Okay. So that's how the business started to evolve into community building instead of just one-on-one.
Nice. And usually, like we tend to help people that were in the same, in our same situation in the past. So like our past self. In your case, what are the kind of people that usually come to you and say, you know what, this is where I am, this is where I'm stuck, and then what is the outcome usually they're going to be able to fulfill or to reach when they will be working with you?
They're the people that have the feeling of similar to what I described for me of like, I know that I can do more. I know that I'm capable of more. I know that my potential is greater than what I'm doing right now. I'm just not sure what direction to take it. I'm not sure how to channel that. And in some cases, that's someone that is like, if you're still in your job and you know that you want to quit and you're trying to figure out how to get started, how to get into the thing, that's one. In other cases, it's people like one of my favorite client stories is a guy that had already quit his job. He had tried something and didn't like what he was doing. He pivoted out of it. And he was kind of at an inflection point where he was trying to figure out where he wanted to go. And he had this idea and this mindset that what I need to do, what I should do is use the skill set that I have from, he was in a consulting role previously as well, and lean into that and go buy a business again or go do these things.
Like you said, I know how the story ends.
Yep. And you could see, because you have that, like, if you're thinking about buying a business because it's just the thing that is next and it's a way for you to make money, then let's talk, because or even real estate is the same way, because a lot of times for him, it was the known. And he didn't know what else was out there and what else was possible. He also, a lot of times, and maybe a lot of people listening, even if you do maybe know what's possible, you don't believe that you can go chase the thing that you want or the thing that you care about, because you've never actually leaned into it. You've just leaned into what makes me money, what is the things that I've done in the past? What do my parents or my family or my colleagues or whoever expect of me? And he went from this pursuit that he thought was the thing based on his experience to he's a writer now. He writes, he ghostwrites for people. He helps do some of the work that he was doing in terms of like the consulting work and operations. He now does that through writing as the way to get into someone's company, and then helps advise them while also writing for them. And he had never thought about the fact that he could make money doing something that he cared about. And so that's at the end of the day, that's who I focus on. People that want to do something that they care about and build a more fulfilling life, but they're not sure how to make that happen, and they're kind of at a crossroads.
Which is more than 90% of the population right now.
Yeah,
they're going through the same process. So how are you able to help that person figure that out? Because, like you said, there's a lot of fears, a lot of that knowing. Like they said, this is what I want to do. I want to secure income, or secure business, and I've been a consultant, and I guess. I don't know if you ever mentioned being writing. That's a hobby, but I want to make money. I want to make a business. So what process did you get him through to be able to realize that, this is it? And first of all, realize it, and then just take the action to do it and just make it happen.
There's that last part is usually the hardest part, because some people realize it and then they never take the action towards it because it's new, it's uncomfortable. And that's why he's one of my favorite clients, because he went all in on it. The process ultimately follows it always looks a little bit different, but it follows a similar framework. And it usually starts with, let's understand what you're working towards right now. What are the goals that you have? What are the things that are in your known line of sight? And then why? I think that's the biggest thing that most people stop with. We set the goals, but we never understand why we have these as goals. And so once we start to understand why, then that's forward looking in order to start looking backwards. We start understanding why, we start understanding what drives you. We start understanding the conditioning and all of the things that are internal to your mindset and the things that are influencing the way that you make decisions. And so while we start with a kind of short focus on the future, then we go really deep into what got you here. Why do you believe that? Why is that your goal? Why are those the things that you care about? Who told you that those are the things that you needed to do? Once we start getting through some of those, we start to identify what made you who you are right now, which is basically the levers that are controlling the actions and the beliefs and the behaviors that you have. And so once we know that, and we know what some of these assumptions are, then we can start recalibrating. We can start re-envisioning the future. And we can start thinking about, what do you okay, now that we know these things, let's actually talk about what lights you up. One of the most powerful tools that usually comes partway through my work with a client is the ikigai. You familiar with ikigai?
Yes.
So for anybody that's not, it's the intersection of 4 different areas of life. It's what you love, what you're good at, what makes you money, and what the world needs. And so we'll go through that exercise with people. And a lot of times when you start drawing the similarities, most people just focus on what makes money and what you're good at. But when you focus on what you love and when you focus on what the world needs, you start to see other things that are possible. And so that's really, once we start breaking some of the conditioning and some of the limitations and some of the beliefs and all the stuff that's up here, then we start recasting a vision of what's possible for the future. And then once we start recasting that, and that a lot of times ends up going back and forth because we start casting a vision and we're like, nope, that's not possible. Yeah. And all the limiting beliefs come back. And so it's constantly chopping away at the things. But eventually we start to build more of a vision. And then the final process is just becoming that person. You get the idea of who you can be. You get the idea of what's possible and this new version of you that's possible. And then we start chipping away at becoming that person and lean into the habits now. If you've read the Ben Hardy book, Become Your Future Self Now, it's that type of idea where what are the things that the future you that you just described, what does that person do? And then how do we start making those things happen now? So there's always a back and forth between looking to the future, looking at what got us here without an attachment to the past, but with an understanding of this is what shaped the decisions that I make now. And once we can become aware of the things that shape how we make decisions, how we act in the moment, we can start to make new decisions.
Yeah. Great. Let's talk about building a community. So you have your meetup every month. And you mentioned before that's something that obviously the one-on-one is when you make the more direct impact with someone, you want to be able to, obviously, like I mentioned before, is more than 90% of the population, if not, I mean, and not higher, almost 100%. The people like if you ask in the street, you know, that really are really unhappy with the life they live in. So how is that process going, and what has been your experience building the community, and what has been the response of the people that usually go to the meetup? And because I've been hearing great comments of people that go to the meetup. You invited me a long time ago, and I should have been going. I mean, that's my fault. But so how has been your experience and just building the community, both in person and the online community that you're building right now?
Well, first of all, just because you haven't been at one of them yet, now this is officially, I'm taking over. This is the Patrick Menefee show.
Yeah.
Event.
That's true.
The community it's really cool because it started to fill a need that people don't necessarily know that they have in many ways. So what I do at the local events is the entire premise is it's connecting as entrepreneurs. It's networking based on who we are instead of what we do. And so what I found is most of the times we go to networking events, we go to social events, and the first question is like, hey, I'm Patrick, what do you do? Yeah. And you tell me what you do.
Yes.
And now going back to what I talked about with success, now I immediately, especially if you're in a real estate room, now like, oh, you're a buy and hold investor. How many doors do you have? And now I immediately judge you based on the answer to that question. And so all of it stays superficial up here. And the same thing if it's just general networking. If you're in marketing and I don't need anything related to marketing, then our conversation is going to be really short because I'm going to go on to the next person. Instead, what we do at these events is we dive deeper into individual topics. And so each month I will share from my coaching perspective and from either my experience, from the community, from a client, whoever, I'll share about a particular topic, and I'll give kind of either an exercise or some kind of primer to get people thinking about it. And then the way that people connect is not based on what they do, but I give them a question, and the question forces them to go deep and have a different conversation. And so what I found with that is people crave the depth of connection. People want relationships. They don't just want networking.
Sure.
And they also feel really uncomfortable if they have to go into a place and they have to have these superficial blah, blah, blah conversations. And so when they can go sit down with someone and have a meaningful conversation, we all know the power of know, like, and trust. Like when it comes to sales, when it comes to any client acquisition, when it comes to anything like that, you know that a sale generally happens because they know, like, and trust you. And so that's how we lead here. We start with getting to know one another. And maybe it means that the sale doesn't happen immediately, but it means that the sale happens more naturally because you leave the room feeling connected with other people there.
Sure.
And you've got a support system because at the end of the day, as business owners, there's things that we experience. There's things that like the highs and the lows, the excitement, the passion.
The story repeats itself.
Yep. And regardless of what industry we're in, we all feel the same thing. But a lot of times when we're by ourselves, we don't have a room that we can go into where we can be authentic and say like, hey man, like this part is really kicking my ass right now. And so when we can bring that together and have a space for that conversation, it's become really, really, really powerful. And that's why people like it so much.
Yeah, that's the premise of the GoBundles, the lone wolf. So it doesn't matter how many networkers you go to, you feel like a lone wolf because you're not really sharing open out with nobody. So how many people usually did you get, and how was your experience building the audience that keep coming back? Because a lot of people have a great networking and great meeting, and people just there's so many of them. There's so many networking, so many distractions, both in person and online. And I'm guilty of this. I haven't been able to your meetup, and I know it's great, but I mean life happens. So how has been you able to build it and just maintain it?
I think the feel of the event has helped maintain it.
Okay.
By being more intentional with it, by creating an impact and an experience for people, it helps create, like, it's been really cool to see the relationships that come out of it. So I've kept track of the numbers over the past year. We've done 15 of them now, and we average right at 50-50 in terms of new people and returning people.
Nice.
And the majority of people who are returning have been to 3 or more events. And so it's been cool to see because at the end of the day, it means that what's happening is working.
Yeah.
Now, the attendance, what has changed it started in September of 2019. I'm sorry, September 2023.
I was going to say the numbers don't add up, but that's fine.
The numbers don't add up. September 2019 is when I closed on my first deal.
This is like a presidential debate. That numbers don't add up, but who cares?
I get fact checked? Is someone fact checking me? So September last year, when I started the events, they were all free. Yeah. And in February, I moved them to a paid event. It's $25 a ticket. And just adding that extra little bit of a barrier, I saw a little bit of an attendance shift for a little bit, but now it's come back up. And I think it added a level of buy-in. Like there's not a ton of paid events. There's a lot of free events around here. And so having an event that has even a slight barrier to entry removes some of the people that just come because they want to get drunk after hours. Yeah. We still get that sometimes, but it is elevated a little bit. So all of that. And then honestly, I've gotten a lot of good word of mouth benefit to keep growing it.
And having the paid version is so powerful. Like Brandon Burchard, I don't know if you know who he is, but he mentioned like at one of the events, you guys are here because you guys pay for the event and you bought the tickets. Otherwise, you will not be here. I mean, if it was free, half of the room will be empty. Yeah. So that happens. Even if it's a 25 hours fee, you're like, I've already paid for it. Let me go. So that's the new strategy with like gyms or all those small studio classes. They charge by the class, and you have to pay in advance. So you already paid the 12 hours or 15 or 20. So I might as well go to the class. Yep. So, okay, that's great. So let's talk about your personal life. So we also always ask the same questions to all our guests. We want to know them a little bit more personal, even though you open up, and we're grateful that you open up about your story. Recommend us a book, but a book that like not the Rich Dad Poor Dad or the Think and Grow Rich, the great books that everybody's always recommend those, but a different book. It could be business, it could be fiction, could be like personal development, any kind of book besides the regulars that all people recommend.
My number one, maybe not number one, but one of the books that I come back to year after year is a book called The Eagle That Drank Hummingbird Nectar.
Okay.
It's written by a guy named Anis Haddad, and it's very focused on, it's written kind of like some of the parables, like The Go-Giver, Tribe of Millionaires, some of those. Yeah. And so it reads really easily, and it's a really interesting story, but it's focused on essentially midlife transformation. It's focused on this tech CEO that sells his company and kind of loses his identity. And so it's very focused on shifting your identity from
like someone that you know. Like,
yeah. Yep. And but it's cool because it goes through his process. It goes through his shift of letting go of his old identity and has some really cool exercises and stuff like that in there too. It tells a really powerful story about the importance of letting go of the assumptions and the beliefs and the things that you have about that got you to where you are and transforming your identity into who you want to be in the future.
Pretty cool. I have to check it out. So you have to share the name with me later because I'm horrible with names, so I'm gonna misspell it. Recommend us a book. A book already. A movie and a TV series. So
this one's hard. What? There was a movie. Oh, well, I just saw Gladiator 2 this weekend.
So I wanted to see it.
I enjoyed Gladiator 2. It also reminded me how great the first Gladiator was. Okay. And now in this life that I'm in, I look at everything through some type of like, what can I learn from it? Personal development. Sure. And I think that's in both of the stories. They talk about the dream of Marcus Aurelius and how fleeting it is and how this like whisper of an idea of freedom is so hard to maintain. But it lasted for generations, and now look at us 2,000 years later. Obviously, that's a fictional story, but Marcus Aurelius is not. Yeah. And seeing like now people come on podcasts to talk about meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Like this guy's journal is now people's favorite book.
Yes.
And so there's the good versus evil story of it and the rising from slavery and all of that. Like there's a lot of good stories that are a part of Gladiator, but I think it's so powerful to think about the lasting effect that a really good and powerful leader has.
Love it. I love movies that has the base and also the book that you mentioned about Marcus Aurelius, the memoirs, whatever it is. Yeah, I read it twice. Meditation. I read it twice. It was great.
I need to read it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You have to check it out. How about a series?
I really enjoyed Billions.
Billions.
I've got a few. Like I enjoy the like the political military type thrillers, and so like 24 and Homeland and all of those are fun.
Homeland was great. Yeah,
Homeland was really good. There were a few really bad seasons in there, but it ended really well. It started really well. So Homeland was. I almost said that one, but Billions. As I've grown, there's a lot of stuff about Billions that I can't stand and that I don't want anything to be a part of. Sure. But also, I think it's really cool seeing have you seen the end of it?
No.
Okay, I won't talk to it anyway. It's interesting to see how like people that are so dedicated to what they do, even if you're kind of a piece of garbage, cool to see what's possible when you're really dedicated to something.
Yeah.
So
You become the best.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is your differentiator? Like usually in life, there is something that make us unique. And in your case, so many people going through your story that you share with us would stay in the military for a long time, would stay in a corporate job because they want to be like the safe space. It would be staying in real estate because that was bringing the money, or even in business. But you decided to evolve, and I think that's what it was. That you evolve in all different, and you overgrow all different roles until the where you are right now. So what did you eat that has been able to make you do all of that, and all the great things that you're gonna be doing moving forward?
There's a couple things that come to mind.
Yeah.
Be thoughtful about the main thing. One of the things that I think has become that I've identified as my superpower is perspective.
Okay.
And you could also call it empathy, but the ability to see things from multiple angles. I have been able to, throughout different areas of my career, I've been able to see the path that I'm on and also see the flip side, see what could happen if I go a different route, or what would happen if I pivot. I think that perspective is what's made me effective as a coach, because it helps me to paint an alternate scenario for people. It helps me show what the alternate reality is that you could be pursuing. And I think it's helped me along the way to really figure out what other options are out there. And I think perspective coupled with, I have a bias towards action, but what I've had to find and refine is this balance, and it's not even a balance, but it's more of a dance between in-depth activity and like going all in, and then knowing when to pivot. Because I'll go sprint, like I talked about with real estate or with any of these things that I've done. Like I'll go sprint 1,000,000 miles an hour, but I do it so that I can learn really quickly. And then once I learn, I can then pivot. Okay. So I think all those three, if I had to say it differently, all three of those tie together, because the perspective allows me to see different things.
Sure.
The going all in and sprinting allows me to get a lot of experience really quickly and take a lot of data in. I use the perspective to see what the different options are. And then I use the ability to pivot to stop going down a road that doesn't make sense anymore and jump over to the one that makes the most sense.
Sounds amazing. Pretty cool. Where can people follow you? Like people want to, if they're local and they want to be join your monthly meetup, or online, they want to be part of your community. I know you bring a lot of value, and you share a lot of information, and you bring like great speakers. Where can people follow you?
You can go, the best bet's probably Instagram. The Patrick Menefee is my personal one. If you know who has Patrick Menefee also. Yeah, but the Patrick Menefee. And then you can follow Charlotte Entrepreneurs, another one that if you know the person, I need it. But Charlotte Entrepreneurs with an underscore at the end, because someone has the other one. But
really?
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Did you ever reach out to them to try to?
Yeah, I tried.
They overcharge you?
They haven't been active since 2017.
Okay.
So. And I haven't found their email
but the Patrick Market, that sounds good. With it,
yeah, that one sounds good.
That sounds good.
And the Charlotte Entrepreneurs underscore one is fine. It works. So,
yeah.
But those are, and then you can go to becomingkinetic.com. That's the community that I have. That is kind of the membership platform behind. If you're not in Charlotte, Becoming Kinetic is the membership that I have to really drive home some of these coaching things without doing just the direct one-on-one, since I only do a couple of those. So those two are tied together. So the Patrick Menefee on Instagram, Charlotte Entrepreneurs _ on Instagram, and becomingkinetic.com.
Perfect. Patrick, thank you for your time. It was amazing.
Thank you,
now looking forward to have you again in the future, and definitely have to go check it out your meetup.
This is officially the Patrick Menefee podcast until Carlos comes to it.
No, definitely, I will do it. Well, when is the next meeting? Let's put it on the calendar.
December 10.
December 10.
December 10 at 6:30.
Yeah, I should be able to make it.
Heist Brewery and Barrel Arts.
Perfect. Okay, let's do it.
You go to the Charlotte Entrepreneurs Instagram and the info.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. And once again, thank you everybody that was here. Thank you for the one that are watching live, and hopefully you have an amazing Thanksgiving. If you watch a recording of this, and if you see value, and if you want to share, we appreciate that you share on a different platform. We are in Instagram, Facebook, and all the different podcast platforms. God bless you all, and have an amazing Thanksgiving. Thank you, brother. It's amazing to have you.
Appreciate.
Have you again soon.